Good afternoon. The rain appears to have stopped, so we're going to go to Chester County, and we're going to talk with Cauley, who is running for the Chester County Court of Common Pleas. He will be interviewed again by Lauren Tilghman, a Buchholz fellow from the Committee of 70. So thank you both very much for being here. Just a few days left until Election Day, so we're excited to hear about your background, Mr. Cauley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. So, Clay, thank you so much again for being here today. We really appreciate your time and the fact that you're willing to be interviewed by the Committee of 70. So, to get us started, can you briefly just share a little bit about your background, your education, and your experience in law?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm truly humbled. I'm grateful that you would extend the invitation. So thank you to you, Lauren. Thank you to Justin. Thank you to the Committee of 70. A little bit about me and my background. So I attended Westchester University, which is a pretty strong alumni base, especially in the Westchester area. An incredible school. I was a communications major, and I'm one of those, I'll call it a non-traditional student. I actually went to school full time and I worked full time. So I spent a large portion of my time commuting, but still maintained a presence on campus. So Westchester afforded me a great opportunity. And from Westchester, I worked for a couple of years, and then I attended Howard University in DC. So a phenomenal historic institution with some big shoes, very big shoes to walk in. After I left Howard University, I knew I wanted to be a trial attorney. I had spent time on one of the trial teams and did fairly well. It was during an era where a lot of the criminal trials were being more televised. And I like some of the things that I was seeing from some of the seasoned attorneys. And so after talking to some folks, meeting with some folks, I said, where can I get the most experience in terms of trial? A lot of times what happens as a young person, you'll graduate law school and then you have to kind of what they say, cut your chops, and you'll have to kind of apprentice and do some associate work. But I was blessed to get the advice to look at either the public defender's office or the district attorney's office, the prosecutor's office. And so I went to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, which was an incredible experience. And I really specialized in one of the elite units, which is called family violence, sexual assault. So some of the very challenging cases that deals with very vulnerable populations, folks that are experiencing all sorts of trauma. Sometimes the defendant will have mental health issues. Sometimes the victim will have mental health issues. So they are the type of cases that you want to handle with care. There's a level, as an attorney, there's a level of attention, a level of detail that you must have. But those are cases that I was really, really passionate about. And so I spent several years at the district attorney's office. My work with juveniles was, I guess, seen, or folks were appreciating my work. And after I left the district attorney's office, I was tapped to be what's called a truancy hearing officer. So that means I heard a lot of the cases where kids are truant, they aren't going to school, and you really have to be attuned instead of looking at the outcome of why they're not being in school. Well, what are some of the root causes that are preventing a particular child from going to school? Did a lot of work with that, and then was tapped to be what's called a dependency officer, and heard cases involving child welfare, dependency, and you can tell there's kind of a theme here that I didn't map out. It certainly just was where my passion and my calling was leading me. And I ended up being a hearing officer for many years, 5 years right here at the Westchester courthouse. So I heard a lot of the dependency cases there, as well as being a custody conciliator in family court, hearing custody disputes. Again, very difficult cases. You're deciding whether there's supervised visitation, unsupervised visitation, how much time a young person spends with this parent versus another parent. And there really are a myriad of issues that crop up that you really have to be sensitive to. And I'll pause there. That's only halfway through kind of my career, and I can certainly continue. But I wanted to stop there in case you had any follow-up questions.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's pivot back a little bit to, your education and your background. So knowing that you went to Westchester University and then went to an HBCU for law school, what was it about law school that made you want to pursue attending law school? What was your interest in like having a career in law in general?
So, Lauren, that's a great question because the time period where I grew up and when I grew up, just to be very transparent, I didn't know any attorneys.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know any, really high level professionals. A lot of the community I grew up in was kind of very gifted, but mom and pop, store owners, beauty salons, the corner store. And so it was not on my radar to become an attorney. In fact, it's not my first career. Although I've been an attorney for 22 years or so, I was actually in banking and finance first, which kind of which will lead into, because folks will say, well, how did that happen? And so while I was at Westchester University, my mother worked at a bank. Wonderful family and mother, and she was able to help me get a job at the bank. I was super excited, very young, and was able to work my way up in the banking world into management. So it really was a great career trajectory for a young person who had worked their way through school and then transitioned with that bank outside of school. And what happened? This is really an interesting story. My brother, who's an attorney as well, and folks say, "How does that happen?" But here's what happened. He came over to my house one day, and he said, "Look, I'm kind of stuck where I am career wise. We're both doing very well, great careers, but we felt like we had this ambition that we wanted to do more. And we sat down and we had a conversation and we looked at different areas. We looked at business school. I think we might have talked about medical school, but it was something about the law that tapped into our abilities to think outside the box, be creative thinkers. It had this broad application. Even in banking, we could see the application through human resources, through employment and labor. And so at a very early point, it was intriguing. It was more of an intrigue because, again, neither of us knew any attorneys. And we really just took a leap of faith.
That's amazing. That's a really cool way to just kind of like set out, the blueprint or like the map of like, how am I going to be successful in my career and, throughout my future. So that's awesome.
No, no, thank you. Thank you for the question.
No problem. So now, given your experience, in law and the different departments that you've worked in your career thus far, why are you running for the judge for the Court of Common Pleas in Chester County?
So, great question. So, we bought a house here in Chester County in '07. At some periods of time, I had to move for other work assignments, but we always kept our residence here and moved back into the county. So, after my tenure was done in different roles, so we would rent out the house and then we'd come back to the house. And so I have a love for Chester County. It's a beautiful area. We're south of Longwood Gardens. You have Westchester University. You have Kennett Square, the Mushroom Festival. It is a great place to raise a family. But dealing with the law. So aside from the beauty of it, the aesthetics, and just really, really genuinely nice people in Chester County. My time here as a hearing officer, right here at the courthouse, hearing some of the most challenging cases, dealing with child welfare, children that are suffering from neglect,
Mhm.
physical, sexual abuse. And folks will hear me say that and say, well, that sounds like a speech of, why you wouldn't want to run. But what happens is when you're immersed in social services, and I talked to a lot of social workers. I was at an event the other night with United Way, folks that are passionate about young people and seeing people thrive and dealing with people that have mental health issues and micro traumas and that sort of thing. When the bug bites you, there's nothing else you want to do. And so I feel called, I feel led to be a part of the Court of Common Pleas, and I'm looking forward to coming back and hearing some of those more challenging cases. I think I bring a level of compassion, a level of integrity, a level of fairness, and it is really my life's calling.
That's amazing. And that's awesome. And it's very true. I agree. Working in human services myself, when you're called to kind of serve the community and serve people, there's a special place in your heart for that. And you can't kind of shy away from it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, you think, it's interesting you say that because at different times I would go into private practice and do these different things. But when it's in your heart, you can't shake. And folks say, well, isn't that difficult? I mean, you come home, you hear these stories, that sort of thing. It's very difficult, but at the same time, it's very rewarding.
Mhm.
The success stories, to see people do well, to see people that have hope. I'm getting a little goosebump. There's no greater feeling. There's no greater feeling.
I agree. So, given all of this, you're running for, Chester County Court of Common Pleas. Why was it important to you to participate in this interview with Committee of 70?
So I'm familiar with the work of Committee of 70. I think if I didn't mention at one point when I chaired the social services group in Philadelphia for the solicitor's office, I'd moved back into the city in Philadelphia and all that sort of thing, moved my family. And I'd been familiar with the Committee of 70 before that, but I really dug in and got more familiar with some of the work that the Committee of 70 does. And I think it's important. If correct me if I'm wrong, Warren, but it's over 100-year
Yes.
organization, which in and of itself says something about an organization to have that type of legacy for 100 years, advocating, bringing awareness to folks about voting, about elections, about some of the rules, the policies. And then I talked to some friends of mine about, should I do the interview and that sort of thing. And I tell you what really, really swayed me is, Lauren, you and your role, being a fellow. And when I looked at the Committee of 70 and the work they're doing to have young people, the next generation, and giving them a platform. And again, that kind of ties into my history and some of the work that I do with young people. So when I saw that and said, okay, I'm going to have a fellow interview me, and it's going to highlight their ability to have a platform, to have this exchange and this conversation, I had to do the interview.
Well, thank you. I know we're very appreciative that you're here today.
Thank
So,
you.
pivoting back to Chester County, within the Chester County court system, what do you think that we do really well? And what do you think that we can improve upon for the community, itself, as community members, folks who, frequent, court cases, and folks who work in the court systems themselves?
So the fortunate thing is I had the ability to work in court administration at Chester County, specifically at Westchester. So I had eyes underneath the hood, so to speak. And one of the things that I'm very thankful for in Chester County, as well as throughout Pennsylvania, we have really robust and strong bar associations. So a bar association is an attorney organization driven to, and it has all different groups to keep us informed, keep us knowledgeable, to do community outreach. Chester County has an incredible bar association with different events, and I said this to an attorney at an event the other day. I said you should consider connecting with the bar association. So the support from the bar association, the court administration is very good in Chester County. The staff is very good. The judges are incredibly passionate about the rule of law, about helping people. You're dealing with a judiciary that is very, very caring. And that speaks volumes. You're dealing with a body of attorneys that are very professional. They are willing to help one another. I know when folks think of attorneys, it's an adversarial system, and you see that oftentimes even in some law schools.
Right.
But we're very fortunate in Chester County to have a really dynamic and good group of attorneys, judges, court administration, and again, the Bar Association, which is very helpful. I think one of the things in terms of government, in terms of the law, is always going to be managing volume as we grow as a population, as people move from county to county and that sort of thing. So one of the things that I can't say that I think we can do better, because I think we're doing it. What happened is Chester County increased its ability to have another judge. So it's one of the reasons why I have this ability to sit here and run today. So again, Chester County, being very progressive, recognized, hey, the volume's growing, and we need to make sure that we are managing and servicing the needs of our population, and we were able to get an extra seat. So I think we're doing excellent work in Chester County.
That's great. Thank you. So, and I think you've touched on this a little bit about what you're passionate about, but what are you most passionate about in your career? And what drives you really to serve others?
So again, there's a bit of a thread. I am a very driven person. My family recognizes that. They talk to me about it. My friends do, and you got to see that. Anybody that goes to school full time, taking 18 credits, and it's like, okay, I'm going to work a 40-hour job. So I believe in work ethic. I believe in excellence. We all make mistakes. I think that's one of the things that help us learn and get better. But I do believe in excellence. And one of the things that drives me is this pursuit to be a better Clay today than I was yesterday. And with that, the second part is the reason why that drives me is I want that so that I can then impart that to others that come after me. So that I can say, and I think you mentioned to young people, here's what I think might be a blueprint to success. Here's some of the pitfalls I made, or here's maybe what I would have done differently. I'll have mentees and folks that either want to go to law school or in law school. And especially the ones that want to go to law school, they always come to me and say, well, what should I take in undergrad? What should my major be? And I love telling them, I was undecided for a while. I was a theater major at one point. I'm a communications major. I'm not a typical poli-sci, that sort of thing. I think the law is one of those professions where it can benefit from having people with diverse backgrounds and diverse knowledge. I think that best reflect our society as a whole.
That's great. That's awesome. So on a less, we'll say a more lighthearted note, what's a fun fact about you that most folks don't know?
Lauren, great question. So I go to the YMCA very often. Folks do know that. Folks know that I go to the YMCA. I love the YMCA. They have one in Kennett, one in Jennersville, which are on the southern end of the county. What they may not know, at my age, and I was there this morning, 5:30 this morning, I still play competitive basketball.
That's great.
I know, don't fall out your chair, Lauren. Don't. It's probably not advisable. I leave what's, a little, a little bit of pain. But there's something about that fellowship, going out there and being amongst folks and testing yourself. Again, driven to be excellent, to be a better Clay today than I was yesterday.
That's awesome. Well, see, now that you said that, I have to know, how many 3-pointers are you shooting these days?
So it's a great question. So I'm a numbers person, and this goes back to me in banking. So I look at what my percentage is. So there are some folks that shoot a lot of threes. I try to shoot about 3 and go 2 for 3. Now somebody will see this video and there'll be a comment, I was there last week and he shot 1 for 3. But I try to get about 2 for 3.
I appreciate your transparency and your humility.
Thanks, Lauren.
So in 30 seconds, why is it important for young people to participate in the voting process, especially in local elections?
Yeah, Lauren, I would argue to any young person listening now live, or will listen or see this video, it is more than important. It is your obligation. It is your duty. It's enough to you can be aware of issues in your local community. You can have concerns, but until you turn the corner and do something about it, there will be micro changes. Your voice matters no matter what you do, blue collar job, white collar job, family person, single person, your voice matters. It's so important at the local and at the national level in some of these races, because they make decisions that impact you on a daily basis. I'd love to go through a civics lesson with you, but anywhere from your school board, who are making decisions, your township supervisor, city council, your mayor, they control budget and expenses. And we talked a lot about human services and social services, and that flow through in terms of money that will impact you. So I would argue it is your obligation to go out and vote. Be informed. Be informed. Watch videos such as this. Do your research. But please go out and vote. The election's coming up May 20th.
Thank you so much, Clay. And then is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today that I didn't ask, whether it's about you personally and professionally or about your campaign?
I'll just share. And first of all, I think we covered a lot of ground. So I'm really appreciative of your questions. And I don't think there's necessarily anything you didn't cover. I think you did a phenomenal job. I would just say my candidacy is going quite well. There's quite a bit of momentum. Folks are very excited about having someone with this many years of qualifications that understands social services, mental health, which is key in this environment that we're in. I think my background at Howard University, it's a school where you can't graduate there and not have a firm understanding of the Constitution and 14th Amendment. So what I will say is I'm just very fortunate. I'm very grateful, and I'm humbled to be in this role, to spend this time, and have the ability to encourage people to go out and vote. And hopefully we'll make a difference. We will make a difference May 20th, and then again in the general election.
Indeed. And then how can people find out more information about you, Clay?
So Cauley for Judge is the website. I have a huge LinkedIn presence as well. There's also Cauley for Judge Facebook if you want to look at events coming up, if you want to see photos and posts. But what is, not to quote Shaq, but what does Shaq say? Google me. There's a lot of information for Cauley for Judge. Take a look at it. And thank you for your support.
Thank you so much, Clay. It's been an absolute pleasure interviewing you today, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I just hope maybe if you're making 2 for 3, the Sixers could probably use you next year.
That's right. That's right. Tell them to call me.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Cauley. Really appreciate your time. Good luck. Next Tuesday is the election, of course, May 20th. Make sure you get out and vote. And best of luck, and hopefully we'll see you in the fall.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
You too.